I knew he was talking about me. I didn't clearly understand what he was saying, but I recognized the word garlic.
Yeah, you sense it.
She was dressed up in a Halloween costume. She was dressed up as a watermelon. Let's call him Sam. He was like looking at the picture, and I saw him just like staring at it. And I was like, what are you looking at? Like, you have something to say? Isn't it appropriate to dress her up as a watermelon because she's black? All rise. Come on in. Welcome again.
Alex?
Yeah.
Welcome. Hey, once again, we're at the All Rise Podcast Studios, huh? Today we're going to talk about something a little bit different, but along the same lines as what we spoke about before. We're going to be talking about bullying. With me again, Sidney Sohn, Young Park. Well, you weren't on before, so please introduce yourself.
Hi, my name is Young. I'm a marketing specialist, and I'm just here to talk about my personal experience.
Thank you, Young. Sid, you want to, just in case somebody didn't watch it last time.
My name is Sidney Sohn. I'm an attorney. We call ourselves victims advocate also. I used to be a student activist in UCLA back in early 2000s. It's nice to be here.
Yeah, and I'm Alex, if you guys don't remember. 20-year attorney, victim rights advocate. You guys ready to go? Talk about it? All right.
Do it.
First things first, we can't forget the food and the drink, right? We're going to be looking at Milky's. All right, let's go for it.
All right, cheers.
Huge amount of sugar in here, by the way. Oh, it's like yogurt, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, this is like a cream soda with the,
Yeah.
the yogurt.
I see why there's so much sugar in it now. We're also going to be doing something different. Today we're going to be eating everyone's favorite donuts. This is from Old Ferry. They said that that's their specialty is creme brulee. All right, let's see.
Wow.
It's good.
That's it, I'm done. Let's see if we have a consistent definition of bullying. What's the definition of bullying?
When somebody picks on you for no reason, or even though if there's a reason, you just constantly feel uncomfortable.
Consistent harassment.
Yeah.
What is it? What do you think?
Yeah, consistent harassment of an individual by another individual or group. Usually done by people in the same equal level or, superior down to someone that, basically under them.
Every school district, at least in California, right, it's mandated that every school needs to have an entire process of how to deal with harassment, including bullying. And every single year, they're supposed to let the parents know. They're supposed to send this information about how to access the process via email, hard copy, disclosure, some kind of form. So if you're a parent out there worried about bullying, first I would say, hey, take a look at that process, right? Because it will outline the steps that you need to take in order to get the school district or the school, the administration to formally recognize your complaint. Because I think, as attorneys, sometimes we get phone calls from parents that are concerned about bullying, but then we talk to them and they haven't instituted these formal steps to actually lodge a complaint. So that's why the school doesn't really know yet, right? So we're like, okay, you got to go through that process first. And then you can kind of really judge to see if the school's actions, if they are sufficient or not. What about personal stories?
I went to Centennial High School in Champaign-Urbana, Illinois. This high school was 75% black.
Wow.
Oh.
5 Asian kids.
What? 5?
Yeah,
Just 5.
Just 5. Including my sister.
School?
Obviously I didn't know enough English to know, like, they're making fun of me at that time. But when they start talking about garlic. You're standing in the lunch line and then this, the kid's like, oh, do you smell garlic? He wasn't talking to me, but he's talking to his friends, but I was right behind him. It wasn't like he wanted to pick on me. I think he just wanted to kind of make a joke out of the situation amongst his friends, standing in lunchtime because he's never seen me before.
How did he know that Koreans use a lot of garlic?
I think that's kind of common knowledge.
That boy was informed. That's what I think.
Did you fight back?
I didn't fight back because I was by myself and then I was the biggest kid in Korea, but over there, I'm on the smaller side. And also, because I just got there, I didn't know what to say, to fight back. I knew he was talking about me. I didn't clearly understand what he was saying, but I recognized the word garlic.
Yeah, you sense it.
Yeah, of course.
Yeah.
And they're all laughing.
They're
But what I did was actually I played a lot of basketball because that's really close to Chicago. But I actually became friends with a lot of them. Became really good and they actually let me play. I think that's an important point. Like getting to know someone individually actually helps a lot to understand and open your eyes. So once you get to know an individual and that person just like you or you share some common knowledge, it's really hard to make fun of that person because now you built a bond.
Yeah.
To put a kind of an end cap on personal stories, so I have a story about a person I went to high school with. He was a white kid. He was studious, right? Like, he was studious in a mature way, right? Like the way that he spoke to the teachers. I guess he just became a target. Throughout my time going to school with him, like, he got into several fights, which were not like mutual combat type fights, right? It was more like he was getting picked on many, many years later, like decades later. You know, I was on Facebook, whatever, and I saw his name pop up, right? So I'm like, oh, wow. Like, I reached out to him. I was like, hey, man, how you doing, you know? And I was like, hey, just to let you know, I know it's been a long time, but hey, I remember when we were in high school, like, you used to get picked on a lot. I remember that aspect about you. I don't even know why I wrote it. And then he responded. He was like, oh, man, I'm so glad that you wrote me, right? I'm so glad that, like, somebody remembered that. He's like, it was a really tough time for me in high school. Yeah, you know, I tried to do the best I could, right, in order for me to try to survive that time. You know, I work for Google now, and I found out he's one of the high ups at Google.
Wow.
And he was like, but that still, like, impacts me to this day, right?
Oh,
like,
yeah.
That aspect of it. Well, I mean, I just didn't really think of it how far-reaching, right? Like, something like that can be.
Yeah.
Like, that kind of trauma really follows you.
Oh, yeah.
And probably influences your day-to-day decision-making. And I think that's the worst part of bullying, right, on a child. When I hear about it now, my concern is not so much like the person's physically hurt or what's the school doing about it. I'm more worried about how this person's going to hold it in and carry it as like a burden, right? So everybody, you know, people should know you're going to be permanently influencing the mental landscape of another person. Not every situation that seems racial is racism. So I remember, like, when I was in a training environment, right? This is when I was in the military. I had a roommate who was white. He grew up in a really small town where they had no diversity, like zero. There was no other people other than other Caucasians. And then one of my other roommates, Fred, he was Southern, right? And he was African American, right? One time, Fred had the pictures of his family up there, and he had a daughter on there. And she was dressed up in a Halloween costume. She was dressed up as a watermelon. One time, you know, I walked by and I saw, let's call him Sam. He was like looking at the picture, and I saw him just like staring at it, right? Like, here's this, you know, Fred's daughter. She's black. She's dressed up as a watermelon. And he was just like looking at it like, and I was like, what are you looking at? Like, you have something to say? And he was like, he's like, no. But he was just looking. And I was like, hey, Fred, can you come over here? Sam has a question he wants to ask you. He comes over and he was like, what's going on? You know? He's like, you know, this picture. You know, he didn't quite know how to say it, right? He's like, this, you know, she's dressed up as a water. And Fred was like, listen, we're all brothers here. Like, don't worry. Like, I know you're not saying anything that's trying to be insulting. You have a question because you don't know anything, right? So he's like, ask me. And he's like, isn't it appropriate to dress her up as a watermelon because she's black? And Fred was like, what? He's like, no, she wanted to dress up as a piece of fruit. And, you know, like, this watermelon costume was cute. You could say it was a racial conversation, but it wasn't meant to be negative, derogatory, right?
You just had a question, legit question.
Correct. So, like, not every time something is racial, there's racism there.
What are we talking about next week?
Yeah, we're going to be talking a little bit about insurance. How the insurance industry, in some ways, bullies ethnic minorities, right? Especially Asians, because we have specific attributes and certain cultural beliefs that they take advantage of.
Sounds good.
All right, can we eat our donuts now?
All right.
All right, finally.
Nice meeting y'all.